What's up, everyone? Happy Sunday. I hope you guys have all had a great weekend, a long weekend. We had the day off on Friday. That's unusual. So last week was a 4-day week. We kind of had to make up for some of the lost time. And in total, last week for me was pretty solid. But what was interesting was the way the market kind of went hot, cold, hot, cold. So Tuesday was my slowest day of the entire year. I only took one trade. And then next thing you know, Wednesday, I'm up 20,000 bucks. Why is that? Because on Wednesday, we had a stock that had good news and was actually moving, whereas on Tuesday, we just didn't have a lot of news headlines. So that's kind of the luck of the draw. I mean, the market always goes like this. It's always an ebb and a flow, ups and downs. Certainly on a sort of smaller scale, but even on the larger scale, when we're talking about, larger economic cycles. Right now, we're at a period where there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. But that hasn't changed our ability as day traders to find opportunities. So that's the good news. All right, let's go ahead and jump onto the screen share. In today's episode, I'm going to give you my game plan for the week ahead and my watch list for Monday morning. I will also, as always, give you guys a link to do the 2-week trial at Warrior Trading. Let's see. Let's just take a step back for a second and let's just look at the P&L from last week. So I'm going to pull up the calendar here. Sitting right now at $253,000 on the month of April. That's fantastic. We still have a week and a half left. So last week I locked up, let's see, we'll give it a chance to load. $49,000 of profit. So what's this week going to hold for us? Well, we're not sure yet. But if you're doing the 2-week trial, you're going to know in real time how I'm doing and the condition of the overall market. So during the 2-week trial, you guys get access to my live audio video broadcast where you can watch me trading. You can see my profit loss window. So you can see if I'm in a stock, if I'm not in a stock, how much I'm up, how much I'm down. You'll also have access to this software right here, which is called Day Trade Dash. This provides real-time charts. These are the charts, including 10-second timeframes, a news feed, including a news squawk. So we have a news chat room right down here. Let's see. Oh, sorry, it's under the tools window. The newsroom right down here, which includes a squawk, so you can hear the news spoken in real time. And you'll also have access to all of these scanners. So you can really use the same tools that I'm using every single day while I'm trading. All right, so I encourage you guys to check out the 2-week trial. It's 20 bucks. That helps cover your market data costs because we have to pay the real-time market data for every user who has access to real-time data. So that $20 helps cover your market data cost. And so I think you guys will get a lot out of it. So make sure you check out the 2-week trial. All right, so condition of the overall market. Let's start high level. Well, right now, obviously the market's still down a bit off the highs. We peaked up here at 613. We dropped all the way down to 476. And now we're bouncing back up here. But we're in a bit of a more precarious position on the daily chart on the S&P being underneath the 200 moving average. When was the last time we were holding underneath the 200? We dipped below the 200 back here in 2024, but only 2023, but only for a moment. So really the last time was sort of in this area here in 2022. Now the catalyst at that time was the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates. All right. So now through this period, the Federal Reserve did drop the interest rates down a little bit, but they still remain quite high. The president, as you probably know, has been pushing the Federal Reserve to decrease the interest rates, and they're holding firm saying, nope, we don't want to do that. We want to see what the new tariff policy is going to mean for inflation, right? I mean, I guess if, all of a sudden iPhones have a 25% price increase because of import stuff, I mean, that's inflation. So anyways, it's to be determined what's going to happen there. So the market's, really in a bit of a sensitive spot where, these headlines can cause kind of a big knee-jerk reaction. So that's the big picture. I think it's relevant just to be aware of. I mean, when we're in a nice, just steady uptrend, even when we're on a little bit of a pullback, the big picture is there's a real tailwind. Right now, though, we have a little bit more of a headwind. But what's interesting is that at times when we have a headwind, as we did certainly during like the pandemic, the beginning when we had this big drop, what I've also found is that, that rare stock that's an outlier that's holding up really well can get a lot more attention than you might ordinarily expect and can do quite well because so many traders are focusing on it. So that's sort of an interesting phenomenon. Sometimes when the market is really hot, there's sort of a lot of stocks that are all moving at the same time, and it can be hard to know which one to focus on. I never like feeling that dispersed attention, because even for me, I'm like, is this the one? Is this the one? And, they're kind of, all of them are the one. And then by default, sort of none of them are the one, because attention is just too spread out. So the breakouts don't work as well. Some of the dips, they roll over harder because people think, oh, maybe people are giving up on this one and shifting to that one. So sometimes it can feel a little bit like musical chairs jumping from stock to stock, which I don't love. Now, we had a little bit of that last week, but not too much. So, all right. Well, let's start with our after hours top gainer scanner. So after hours top gainer scanner right here, this is showing us our biggest moves on Thursday. So sorted by biggest percentage move, SHFS. This was the biggest one. All right, so this one popped up, as you can see, from 2 all the way to 650, then drops back down to 4. The 200 moving average is up around 9. It's a 1 million share float. That's pretty good. I want to just look at these headlines a little bit. So, U.S. company, financial service provider to cannabis-related businesses. Friday, Thursday. Well, see, this is a little odd because I'm not seeing a clear catalyst that occurred at the closing bell. They had, it was 4 p.m. that it popped up. So whenever that's the case, I get a little bit unsure. I just don't know how well that's going to work. Filing on the 18th, but I don't think it would be related to this. Oh, so then they have news that the relationship with their auditor, Markham LLP, was terminated. Interesting. All right. Well, I'm probably gonna yeah. Okay. So I don't know. That might, I don't know. That's a little bit of a funny one. We'll see. But I don't know. It's also, for what it's worth, it's not really the right sector. Cannabis stocks and stocks that have touched the cannabis industry don't typically do very well. It's ironic, but they don't get high. They don't go high. I don't know why, but they just rarely seem to do well. It's almost like, I remember back in 2012 and 13, 14, there were some Canadian cannabis companies, and people, this is like a decade ago, people were all excited about the future, and it was almost like too hyped up. I don't know. So anyways, I don't think that's probably going to work. DRCT, I have traded this one before, and it doesn't usually trade very well. It's also too cheap for me at 84 cents. GURE, this one, $1.17 is too cheap. ADD, can't even focus on that. CHRO, 192. No. I mean, it's a little too cheap. The daily chart's not that interesting. You can see this red candle back here. So it's sort of just a bounce off of that pullback. Now, PRTG is interesting. This one, look at the daily. Look at how much it pops up, sells off, pops up, sells off. Popped up a little bit on Thursday. So it did pop up there on Thursday, but on such light volume, it's sort of hard to trust. It needs a catalyst. So if this comes out with news sometime next week, or in the near future, we might get another pop. And what level would we be looking at as a target? Probably back up to this high of about $13. So I think it's possible, but with the history of those topping tails, there's a bit of a headwind that this one, I think, would face. So may not be an easy one to trade. All right, so PRTG, not for tomorrow, though, not for Monday. Now, also on the same note of a daily chart that could work but needs a catalyst, JNVR, higher priced, popped up, pulled back, popped up, dipped for a second, popped up, dipping down. Could give you another move higher, but liquidity is not great because it's too expensive. NAOV, this one, Popped up, red candle on the daily, popped up, dipped down with a catalyst, maybe. AREB, these are all continuation stocks, just to kind of like, kind of have fresh in your mind. Because if I saw AREB hit the scanner, I would click on it real quick. I would type in my level 2, and if there was a fresh headline, I might be pretty quick to jump on it, thinking, all right, this is a stock that is now proven it can make huge moves. So I want to be quick, to jump on if it seems like it's about to make another. Okay, so we've looked at the after hours top gainer scanner. Not really any super strong ideas off of that one. Okay, so now we're going to look at the continuation scanner. We're also going to look at recent IPO top moving. So continuation first, JNVR, already mentioned it. SBEV, SBEV, Splash Beverage Group. I did make, I got some trades on it this week, but it's not typically a stock I love. For some reason, it's very thickly traded. I don't know why, but it is. It's despite the float being pretty low. ELPW, I thought the float was a little too high on that, so leaving that alone. AREC, float is too high. Mura, float's too high. Although Mura, some traders would like it just because you could buy like 100,000 shares of it. It's so thickly traded. Room to the 200 moving average, but that's like 340, so it's not a huge amount of room. I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather trade something that has the potential to make a bigger move. AREC, float's too high. PHIO, under the 200, similar chart to Mura. USAR, so this is the rare earth company. I thought it was a good catalyst, and it did end up making a nice move on the daily, but just too slowly to be really easy for day trading. CRML, not enough action there. None of these really are that familiar. MSGM, well, that could work, actually. That could work. It's not a bad chart. Strong volume, strong close on Friday. I'll put that one on the list. So let's see. I'm just going to put it on my whiteboard. MSGM. All right, so that one's on the watch list. And then let's look at the recent IPO top gainer. So recent IPOs, FATN, this one's put in a couple big moves, but the halt's going up and down. It's very choppy. I think it's just going to be too risky. LHSW, don't really think it's probably got enough volume. BIYA, when it popped up and then gapped down here, now it's created this funny resistance to the gap, not more of a straight line there. But if we could get above that level, maybe we got something to work with for move up towards 8. No, none of those others are really that interesting to me. So, RYET, if it broke through the highs, but at this point, it's going to have ascending resistance right here. So that's probably going to be an issue. Probably leave that one alone too. So, all right, so we've got our continuation scan. We've checked our recent IPOs. We've checked the after hours scanner. Low flow top gainer scanner from Friday. So just sorted by biggest percentage gain. These were some of our big moves. Obviously, we had, let's see, KZIA showing as a big gapper, but it was a reverse split. So that sometimes makes it look like a gap. MSGM, yep, so we have that on watch. SXTC, could we watch that going into Monday? Potentially, it's a strong reversal off the bottom. It's almost a bullish engulfing candle. Not quite, but almost. I'm going to put that one as a maybe. SXTC, so that one's on the list. ADGM, right here. I don't like that. It popped up and pulled back too much. That's not going to be good. PNBK, popped up, pulled back a little too much, I think, as well. OMH. Now that's interesting. Kind of popping up, pulling back, popping up, pulling back, and then coming back up. So you've got that descending resistance line up here. Interesting. Okay, something to keep an eye on. And then, yeah, and then I don't really see anything else here. You could always sort by float. This is just sorting for lowest float here. SMX, we looked at this one. It's not that clean. LICN. You know, I mean, these are stocks you could be familiar with. And if you have a day where it's got news, with this very low level of supply, it's certainly possible it could give you a big move. But none of these really look set up right now. You know, something like PRTG could be, you know, there can be a daily setup on it sometimes, but the problem is daily setups don't typically work well unless the stock has a catalyst or unless it recently just made like a 500% move. So AREB, that daily setup worked well, but that's because the stock had just made this huge move. That was back there. All right, so I would say at this point, MSGM, SXTC are certainly on watch. And then when I sit down tomorrow morning, I'll pull up my scans around 6:30. I'll sit down here around 7 a.m. to get ready for my broadcast. And I'll be looking at this scanner right here. I'll be seeing what is already gapping up based on the early pre-market session between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m., which is very light volume, but still can give an indication of where there is attention, what people are focusing on. Maybe it'll be one of the stocks from the watch list, MSGM, SXTC. Maybe there's a surprise stock that comes out with news overnight, and then boom, Monday morning, gaps up, squeezes, and you know that's where we're focusing. So here's what I think you guys should do. Next steps, do the 2-week trial. That way you can spend all of this week, all of next week, watching over my shoulder, fully immersing yourself in this community and learning what it means to be a trader. Those of you guys that want to keep learning today, you're not ready to, you know, just call it quits or just be like, all right, I guess I'll just show up tomorrow. You want to keep it going right now. I'll put a link to an episode I just uploaded on Friday, which is how I made $1 million this year in just 51 days. All right, so that for me was really quick. So started January 1st, all the way up to $1 million in 51 days. Right now, I'm about sitting at about 1.25 million on the year. The goal is still 5 million for this year. So 1.2 million in Q1, that has me in good shape, you know, right? So slow and steady wins the race. All right, so make sure you guys check out the 2-week trial and check out this episode right here. A reminder, as always, trading is risky. My results aren't typical, so please take it slow. And I'll see you live streaming tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. for members of Warrior Trading.